Today's lesson is Ancient and Amazing. Fun facts about the Malayan tapir. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
Hello, everybody. I am Shane.
And for the month of December, we're talking about a special kind of animal that lives in Southeast Asia. It's called the Malayan tapir. It's a member of the tapir family. There are tapirs.
The largest member.
The largest member, absolutely. If you see pictures of it, you will know that it's quite large. And, of course, there are other tapirs living in the tropical regions of the Americas, Central and South America. But we're talking specifically about the Malayan tapir. Last time, of course, we introduced you to this particular animal. It's the largest member of the tapir family. And we talked about the fact that it's kind of shy, but it's also amazing. It's a mammal. It's also a living fossil. It's been around for millions of years. And, of course, it's got a very unique snout. It's got a nose like no other.
Prehensile.
It's prehensile, indeed. It can move. It can pick things up. And it uses that sense of smell to navigate, to communicate, and, of course, to find food. Okay, we'll find out some more interesting facts about the Malayan tapir in our program now. Let's listen to the first part.
A barrel-shaped body. Malayan tapirs have a large barrel-shaped body that is perfectly adapted for life in dense forests. Combined with their tough skin, this shape provides excellent protection against predators like tigers, and despite their bulky appearance, tapirs can move surprisingly quickly through thick underbrush. What's more, they're excellent swimmers, often using water as a means of escape or simply to cool down.
大家好，第一部分看到形容词 adapted， 指适合点点点的，或是适用于点点点的，或是生物适应的。例如 With their thick fur, polar bears are adapted to the freezing Arctic environment. 北极熊拥有浓密的毛皮，能够适应极冷的北极环境。或者 Desert plants are adapted to survive in very hot and dry conditions. 沙漠植物适合在非常炎热和干燥的条件下生存。接着看到 dense 这个单字，它是形容词，表示茂密的或是密集的，也可以是密度大的或是浓厚的。例如It took hours for the soldiers to make their way through the dense jungle. 士兵们花了几个小时才穿过茂密的丛林。或是 Housing is often expensive in cities with a dense population. 在人口密集的城市里，房屋通常很贵。后面看到名词 predator， 它有掠食者或是捕食性动物的意思。例如 There were many predators in the forest that the hikers had to be aware of. 森林里有许多掠食动物，登山客们必须小心。也可以说 Small animals in this area are always looking out for predators. 这个地区的小动物总是在小心提防掠食动物。再来介绍形容词 bulky， 表示笨重的或是庞大的。我们可以说 The bulky coat that Trevor wore made him look bigger than he was. Trevor 穿的那件笨重大衣让他看起来比实际大只。又或者说The first laptops were very bulky and unattractive. Now, they're slim and beautifully designed. 最早的笔记型电脑很笨重又不吸引人，现今的笔电很薄，而且设计很美观。
Okay, so we've got a barrel-shaped body.Now, we're talking about the shape of the body being barrel-like. So we know what a barrel looks like. Imagine a giraffe is probably the opposite of having a barrel-shaped body. It's got long legs, long limbs. Here, it looks like a big barrel. So Malayan tapirs have a large barrel-shaped body that is perfectly adapted for life in dense forests.
Right, and remember, a barrel is like a shape that is like a cylinder, but it's sort of smaller at the ends and wider in the middle. Think of a wine barrel, and you'll know what this shape is referring to. And yes, it does have this large barrel-shaped body, and it's adapted for life in dense forests. So if something's adapted, that means it's suitable for that particular environment.
Right, it's suited by nature, or its character, or designed for a particular use or situation, like living in its environment. And we say it's adapted for a life in a dense forest. Now, when something is dense, that just means that it's tightly packed together. So very crowded. You can imagine going into some of the forests in Taiwan where you can't even see through the bushes because they are so compact and dense.
Right. So, of course, rainforests are considered dense because they have lots of trees very close together and the sunlight has difficulty shining down to the forest floor. Dense can also be a slang term for somebody who isn't very smart. Oh, your cousin is kind of dense. Maybe he needs to go back to school or something like that. But in this particular case, we're talking about a dense forest, and their bodies are adapted for living in those forests, and combined with their tough skin, the shape provides excellent protection against predators like tigers. And despite their bulky appearance, tapirs can move surprisingly quickly through thick underbrush. Okay, this is a very long sentence, so let's break it down into smaller parts. We're saying combined with their tough skin. Okay, so we're talking about the shape of their body. Right. So the shape of the body, this barrel-shaped body, is combined with their tough skin. They work together, so it has really tough skin. It's really hard to cut into or bite into this animal if you are a predator.
Right, so the shape and this tough skin provides excellent protection against predators like tigers. So it would be very difficult for a tiger maybe to bite through this very tough skin. And it will help and aid as a type of protective mechanism. But despite their being bulky, so when we say something is bulky, we mean that it's not easy to move. It is a bit awkward, kind of large. So you can say if you go, for example, to Costco, you can buy things in bulk. So if you were to buy toilet paper in bulk, you're not going to just get one package of toilet paper. You're going to get 50 packages of toilet paper. And you say that is very bulky.
That would last a long time if you had that much toilet paper. But again, we're talking about its bulky appearance. It looks kind of big. It looks kind of fat. So you might think, oh, something that big and something that fat is not going to move very fast. So those predators, like tigers and other animals, can easily catch them. But despite their bulky appearance, even though they look very bulky, still they can move surprisingly quickly through thick underbrush. And of course, in the rainforest, we have underbrush, which means basically vegetation, plants and bushes and things like that that grow on the forest floor.
Right. And it could also be things that have fallen down to the floor from up atop of the rainforest. But difficult to move through, so they can surprisingly move pretty quickly through that underbrush. What's more, they're excellent swimmers, often using water as a means of escape or simply to cool down. So when we say what's more, we just mean in addition also. So not only are they quick and do they have this tough skin and this bulky body, they're also able to swim excellently.
Exactly. So if they're trying to get away from a predator, they can just jump into the river or into a pond or a lake or something, and they can get away. I'm not sure if they could get away from tigers.
Because they can swim. So tigers can swim, right?
Yeah, so they got to be very careful there. But again, they like the water. They're excellent swimmers. They probably know how to do the backstroke and the breaststroke and all that fun stuff. And they use it as a way to escape or as a means of escape. Right. That's what a means of just means a way to escape. Or they just want to cool down, especially because they live in Southeast Asia.
Hot.
It can get really hot there, so they think, oh, I'm going to cool down by taking a dip in the nearby pond. Okay, we're at the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on to the second part and talk about something called the Oreo taper. I wonder if that's a cookie or something.
Interesting.
The Oreo taper. Some people call Malayan tapirs Oreo tapirs because their striking black and white color pattern reminds them of the famous chocolate and cream cookie. But the pattern isn't just for show. On the contrary, it serves as an effective camouflage. Specifically, it helps break up the taper's outline, making it harder for predators to spot the taper in the shadows of the forest environment. Interestingly, baby tapirs have a different pattern that features stripes and spots, which helps them blend into the dappled sunlight and leaf shadows of the forest floor.
第二部分看到形容词 striking， 它的意思是引人注目的、惊人的，也是很有魅力的意思。例如 The painting's striking use of colors has made it a favorite of visitors to the museum. 那幅画作运用的亮眼色彩，使其成为该博物馆造访者的最爱。再举一个例子 The striking beauty of the area made it a great place to take photographs. 此区引人注目的美景，使其成为拍照的好地方。下一个来看到 blend 这个单字，它是动词，指使融入或是混合。举例来说 The author likes to blend different styles when she writes her novels. 这位作家写小说时，喜欢融合不同的风格。或者 The soldiers wore green in order to blend in with the trees and grass. 士兵们穿着绿色，以融入树与草皮。
Okay, so it's time for us now to talk about the second part. And of course, you all know what an Oreo is. It's a kind of cookie that is black on the outside and white on the inside. It's quite common. I've seen it here. It's quite common in America, of course. It's a very common snack.
It does seem to be popular all over the world.
It does seem to be popular all over the world. But this particular taper is being referred to as the Oreo taper.
So what does that mean? It tastes like an Oreo cookie if you eat it?
I think they're probably talking about its appearance. Here's the first sentence. It says, Some people call Malayan tapers Oreo tapers because their striking black and white color pattern reminds them of the famous chocolate and cream cookie. Okay, so this is referring to its appearance. It has this striking black and white color pattern. If something's striking, it really sticks out and you can really notice it.
Right, yeah. This color pattern reminds them. If something reminds you of something, it makes you think of that thing. So when we see these so-called Oreo tapers, we can't help but think of the Oreo cookie, that chocolate and cream cookie enjoyed by people worldwide.
Indeed. So, yeah, of course, that reminds you of that cookie. It might remind you of other things, but it does have that striking black and white color pattern. And if you look at that, you think, that looks a lot like an Oreo cookie. But the pattern isn't just for show, okay? So sometimes people make themselves appear a certain way so they look attractive. So that's for show. Right. They might wear a hat or a certain kind of set of clothing just for show, for the appearance, just to impress people. But this pattern is not just for show. It does look impressive, but it's for other reasons as well.
And animals, right? They might want to look impressive to attract mates as well. So this is not a pattern that is really used for attracting these tapers of the opposite sex. This is used for other reasons.
Right. So on the contrary, it says, or the opposite, it serves as an effective camouflage. So you might think it's for show, and that means you're going to see it. But actually, it's not for it to be seen.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, to serve as camouflage. Right. How would you describe camouflage?
Yeah, so camouflage is basically being able to hide something within something else. So if you're wearing a camouflage shirt, for example, and you stand near some bushes, people might not be able to see you because you will blend into the background. So camouflage is to help you blend into your background so that you don't stand out.
Right, and this word is kind of difficult to pronounce because it's got the zh sound in there. So camouflage, and sometimes it's called camo for short. When you see soldiers wearing their uniforms and they're trying to hide in the jungle, they are wearing camouflage clothing.
Correct. Specifically, it helps break up the taper's outline, making it harder for predators to spot the taper in the shadows of the forest environment. So it's telling us how it camouflages itself. And specifically, it's to break up the taper's outline. So to break something up means to kind of take it apart. So if we have the outline of a taper and we want to break it up, we don't want to see that outline. In other words, it is going to kind of disappear into they say here, the shadows of the forest environment.
Right, so you don't know where one part ends and the next part begins. So animals will see that and they'll think, why is it black there? Why is it white there? And why is it black again, like an Oreo cookie? It's kind of confusing. I guess there's really nothing there. It's just some shadows. Let me move on to the next animal. So yes, it breaks up the outline of the taper. It kind of hides it in the foliage of the forest, and therefore predators like tigers cannot spot or cannot see the taper in the shadows of the forest. And I'm sure the taper knows to go for those shadows so that the tigers won't get them.
Right. And of course, a predator. We have predator and we have prey. And a predator is an animal that goes after other animals to eat them. And prey is the animal that gets eaten. So tapir could be prey, but not very easily catchable because of its tough skin, as we mentioned before, and this ability to camouflage itself.
Right. They probably still get caught once in a while, but for the most part, they probably are able to get away from those nasty predators. Now, interestingly, baby tapirs have a different pattern that features stripes and spots, which helps them blend into the dappled sunlight and leaf shadows of the forest floor. Now, like a lot of animals, of course, the baby forms of the animals look different from the adult forms. So the very young ones have a different kind of pattern on their skin. It's not the same as the adult, black, white, black. It's actually different. It has stripes and spots, kind of like a tiger, I guess.
Oh, yeah, kind of, yeah. That helps them to blend. So to blend into the dappled sunlight and leaf shadows of the forest. Now, to blend into something just means to mix into this thing. It's very similar to camouflaging. You won't be able to see the subject, like the baby tapir, from its surrounding or from its background. It will just blend into it. And the dappled sunlight, so to be dappled just means to have like little circles or little spaces. So say a dapple of sunlight would just be a little spot of sunlight.
Now, that's spots and patches and things like that, so it can easily hide itself and avoid predators. Okay, let's move on now to the third and final part of our lesson. We will listen to it first.
From its cookie-like color pattern and prehensile snout to its special evolutionary history, the Malayan tapir is truly one of a kind. Sadly, however, the tapir faces significant threats from habitat loss and hunting. Therefore, conservation efforts are necessary for its survival.
第三部分看到名词 conservation， 它表示对环境或是文物的保护、保育，也可以是保存或是节约的意思。可以说 The park is dedicated to the conservation of local wildlife and natural habitats. 该公园致力于保护当地的野生动物和自然栖息地。也可以说 A new conservation program is helping to protect the local bear population. 一项新的保育计划正在帮助保护地方熊群数量。
Okay, so this paragraph here wraps up the topic. It gives us a range of things that we've talked about, from its cookie-like color pattern and prehensile snout to its special evolutionary history. The Malayan tapir is truly one of a kind. So again, this sentence kind of sums things up. It reminds us of what we talked about before. We did talk about the Oreo kind of pattern of its body. And we also talked about the fact that its snout is prehensile. It can grab things. And it also has this evolutionary history. Remember, we described it as a living fossil. So therefore, as a result, it is unique. It is one of a kind.
Yeah, and so it's evolutionary history. So we're talking about evolution. And evolution is just how things change and adapt over time. So all of these things add up to make the Malayan tapir really one of a kind.
One of a kind, very unique, very special. Sadly, however, the tapir faces significant threats from habitat loss and hunting. So this is the story of a lot of animals. They're really unique. They're cool, but of course they are threatened, and it faces significant threats. A threat, of course, is something that is dangerous to you, and these threats include habitat loss. It doesn't have places where it lives. That's what the habitat is, where it lives in the forest and places like that. People keep cutting down the trees to make palm oil or whatever. Therefore, conservation efforts are necessary for its survival. So conservation just means when people go into nature and they try to protect it.
Yeah, they try to conserve it. They try to keep it there for intended use, which is by these animals and that live in this environment.
Okay, we're at the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到马来貘有庞大的桶状身体，非常适合茂密森林的生活。文中是用 adapted 来形容适合什么的，适用于什么的。那它是来自动词 adapt。不晓得同学们有没有曾经把 adapt、adopt、adept这三个单字搞混呢？我们来试着区分这几个容易混淆的单字。首先第一个看到 adapt， 中间是个 a， 那从它的字首字根来看，它的字首 ad 表示朝向，在这边有强调的语义。那字根 apt apt， 它表示适合、符合。那其实 apt 本身就可以当形容词来形容适当的、恰当的、合适的。好，那同学们可以想象，要使某人事物变得合适，朝往适当的方向发展，中间就会需要经过改造调整。那用这样的方式，也许可以联想到 adapt， 它是指适应、使适合，或者是还有改编的意思。那第二个看到 adopt，中间是一个 o， 那这个单字里面的 opt 当动词表示选择、挑选，那尤其是指优先选择某事物。当我们要采纳某个方法或者是采用某事物时，就会去做出选择嘛。还有像领养动物，人们也会去挑选最适合自己的宠物。所以同学们也许可以用 opt 的意思去联想到 adopt， 它有采用、采纳或领养的意思。那接下来看到 adept， 中间是一个 e， 那它可以当形容词或名词。当形容词表示熟练的、擅长的或是内行的，当名词表示能手行家。同学们可以把其中的 e 跟 expert 专家或者是 excellence 优秀杰出来做联想，去联想 adept 它的意思。好，课文第二部分他提到马来貘身上黑白醒目的图案不只是为了展示，相反的它能作为有效的伪装。文中是用 It serves as an effective camouflage 来表达它能作为有效的伪装。Camouflage 就是指这个动植物它的保护色，或者是表达伪装、掩饰。那我们这边是要介绍 serve as 加上名词的用法，它可以用来表达充当、担任等等的语义，就跟 function as 加名词，或者是 act as 加上名词，意思差不多。好，那我们来看看它的用法。当主词是事物的时候呢，可以表达作为什么使用，充作什么什么。例如 Humor can serve as a tool to lighten the mood。幽默可以作为一种缓和气氛的工具。好，那么当主词是人的话，可以表达担任什么样的职务。例如 Dave has served as the team's coach for 7 years. Dave 担任那支球队的教练已经7年了。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Adapted. These plants are well adapted to living in dry desert conditions. Dense.The forest was so dense that it was difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Predator. Lions are powerful predators that hunt in groups. Striking. The model wore a striking red dress that made her stand out at the event. Blend. The bird's brown feathers help it blend in with the trees, which makes it hard to spot. Habitat. Pollution is threatening the habitats of many creatures that live in the ocean.Conservation. Conservation programs aim to reduce the effects of human activities on the environment.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, which characteristic of the Malayan tapir described in the article do you find most interesting and why?
Well, I think the tapir's most interesting attribute is, I would say, probably the snout. Since it is a prehensile snout, I've always found that very fascinating, these prehensile snouts that just like an elephant, or they can grab things and they have an amazing sense of smell, and it just makes them kind of otherworldly. And to me, yeah, they do kind of seem like just the ancestors of many centuries of evolution.
Kind of cool there. Well, the characteristic I find most fascinating is its color pattern, black, white, and black. It reminds me of when I was a kid going to visit my uncle's farm down in Grettinger. His cows kind of had that same color pattern. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Shane.
See you next time.